All right, welcome everybody. We're glad to have you all here. My name is Ben Holt. I'm with the county's long-range planning team. Really excited to have you at our final AC44 open house event. I'm going to give a brief presentation and then you'll have an opportunity to go out in the lobby and some of the adjacent to talk to staff and review some of the information on the comprehensive plan. So, Tanya, if you want to advance. So, of course, the reason we're here tonight is unveiling our draft comprehensive plan. This is a big milestone for the AC44 project. We're really excited to have a complete draft of the plan document. This was several years in the making. What we're going to cover here, just as part of this introduction, is I'm going to touch on what a comprehensive plan is, and I recognize a lot of faces out here. I know some of you are familiar with that, but just want to make sure for everyone in the audience they're aware what the comprehensive plan is intended to do. We'll give a brief history of the project and the various phases. We'll introduce this current phase 4, which we've just started. We'll also go over the draft plan document and its structure. And then we'll talk about implementation and our big moves, which is a key aspect of the document and how it's going to be implemented. And then we'll talk about what's going to happen over the next couple months throughout the rest of phase 4 with AC44. So what is a comprehensive plan? It's a long-range planning document that's intended to provide guidance for our community. It's actually required by Virginia State Code that all counties and cities and towns have a comprehensive plan to guide their land use decisions. So the plan provides recommendations for how and where we grow, directing that growth through our growth management plan, also providing support for businesses, protecting and restoring our natural environment, making that a priority, as well as providing transportation and multiple modes of transportation, encouraging a variety of housing types, so we can hit different price points for that never-ending demand for housing. And then community amenities such as parks, trails, and recreation. So what does AC44 stand for? It's Albemarle County 2044, because the plan sets a 20-year vision for our community. So it projects out to 20 years in the future. This is an update to the 2015 comprehensive plan. That was our last major plan update. So that is the active plan until AC44 is adopted. So what are the project goals? We want the plan to reflect the county's strategic initiatives that have occurred since 2015. Those include climate action, updating economic development, multimodal transportation planning projects. We're also seeking to integrate equity into the engagement process throughout AC44 and also within the plan document itself. And we also sought to improve the plan's usability, make it a streamlined document that's hopefully easier to navigate, easier to read, easier to understand. I'll go over the previous phases in just a moment, but this phase 4 that we're in, this is really about finalizing that comprehensive plan document. So like I said, we have a draft version of the plan. And with the input that we'll receive throughout phase 4, we're going to incorporate that into the final edits of the document. And then phase 4 will conclude with public hearings where we present that final document to first the Planning Commission and then the Board of Supervisors for adoption. So engagement methods throughout the project's history. We have been posting online questionnaires since the first phase of this project. We've had really good participation online. I'll share some of those numbers with you in a moment. So a lot of folks have engaged with those questionnaires. That's really the highest volume interaction that we've had is through that online engagement. We've also had some pop-up events where we will show up at various public places like libraries and schools to share information about the plan, so that people know where to access it and how to give feedback. We've also hosted a series of open houses, just like this one. Some of those have been in person, some of those have been virtual meetings, and this one, of course, is a hybrid as we have some folks joining us online tonight. We've also hosted what we called Lunch and Learns, and that was a series of presentations on the various topic chapters. And we did those at lunchtime throughout the previous months of this year. We've also hosted some roundtable discussions and workshops, and we've given presentations to other county groups and committees, such as the the Heritage Committee and the Architectural Review Board. And then last, we had working groups. We had several different of these different groups. I think it was 3 total. And these were volunteer community members who wanted to be involved in the project. So we used them kind of as a sounding board as we produced new engagement materials. So we got feedback from those folks and shared information and had discussion with their contacts in the community. So some of that participation that I mentioned, and these numbers will be higher than what's on the screen. I think this was produced a few months ago, but over 34,000 visits to our AC44 website, more than 70,000 people opening newsletters, and then well over 2,000 people participating in our various events. And that includes the online surveys, these hosted chat kits that people conducted, emailed comments to our AC44 address, and attendance at the various events. So in phase 1, just a real quick recap what we did. We developed our AC44 framework. I'll share a few details about that in a moment. That was to provide guidance for the rest of the plan and the rest of the process in producing the plan. We also conducted a build-out analysis in 2022. And just as a side note, we are currently underway with a new build-out analysis, which will be finished and presented soon. So that build-out analysis, what it does is it analyzes our capacity for growth that still remains within our existing development areas. And then we also reviewed the growth management policy in phase 1. And what I mean by that is we took a look at our existing growth management policy in the 2015 plan, and we highlighted areas where we believe that there was guidance lacking, where we wanted some more information that included things like land use guidance at rural interstate interchanges, crossroad communities, and then analysis of the development areas, which ties into that build-out analysis. So we can evaluate how we can use the land within our development areas and what sort of criteria would inform any changes to those boundaries in the future. So that framework I mentioned, this was kind of a high-level visioning exercise, and we worked with community members to kind of establish an identity for the county. We came up with what we were calling our guiding principles, the 4 guiding principles, what type of community we want to be over the next 20 years as we look into the future, and that is a green and resilient, welcoming and equitable, thriving and prosperous, and connected and accessible community. So those principles are used to inform the goals and objectives and actions that are in the topic chapters, as well as how we produce the document and just giving us direction. So phase 2, that's where we started drafting the goals and objectives for the plan chapters to articulate the need for various aspects of the comprehensive plan. We also did something called planning toolkits, which was to guide transportation and land use. And one of the outcomes of that was identifying our activity centers. Those are areas of mixed use, high density development within our development areas. We want to make these places walkable, and then have a variety of services, jobs, housing, shopping, all within a confined area. So our plan topics, These are housed within one section of the plan, which I'll describe later, but we have 9 of those chapter topics, which we rolled out in the previous phase. So those topics are the development areas land use, and then a separate chapter for rural area land use, as well as housing, transportation, economy, environmental stewardship, parks and recreation, community facilities, and cultural resources. So we conducted engagement to get input so we understand what the community priorities are for these various topics, as well as input from staff, planning commission, board of supervisors, and partner agencies. And that was incorporated into the chapter content for these, as well as those goals and objectives. So phase 3, which was just concluded, what we did was we refined the content within the topic chapters. We drafted the actions that support the objectives that were created in the previous phase. And then this updated topic chapter draft was presented to the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors at work sessions. We also presented these to the public in a series of open house and those online events that I mentioned earlier. And then at the end of phase 3, we also developed our big moves, and these are priority actions that are going to be used to implement the plan, and I'll provide a little bit more detail about that in a moment. So phase 4, where we currently are, we have obviously presented this draft document. It's on our website. I'll share more about how to access that and share feedback. We're seeking input, again, from our community members, the Planning Commission, the Board of Supervisors, as with all the previous phases. And then once we incorporate that feedback, it'll be used to inform the final draft document and then ultimately the plan adoption later this fall. So what does that plan document look like? We've organized it into 4 parts. Part 1 is a plan policy, gives an introduction to the plan, an overview of the plan, how to use it, how it's applied. Part 2 is our growth management policy, and it has distinct direction for both the development areas and the rural area. Part 3 is where those top 9 topic chapters are contained, and we also have an implementation chapter that describes how we will implement the goals, objectives, and actions, and it also contains those big moves that I mentioned. And part 4 is just the supporting material. Those are related plans and documents. So to describe what the big moves are, this is essentially an implementation prioritization strategy. It's also been used in peer jurisdictions, other notable comprehensive plans, including Richmond and Charlotte, and those were produced in recent years. So it's a strategic grouping of key initiatives, and these are organized by common theme. So these kind of think of it in a way as bundling actions, and these spread across multiple topic chapters. So these will inform policy decision and provides direction and priorities for those first 5 years of implementation following the plan adoption. You can kind of, if you want a symbol, you could think of it as sort of a North Star to provide direction. So what the big moves are, we've come up with 7 of them, and they are to align regulation to support AC44 implementation. So that includes the zoning ordinance update, which is underway, and we're working to align that to reinforce and work well with the comprehensive plan. It's also going to be, the subdivision ordinance is included in that update as well. The second big move, increasing affordable housing access and those various housing options, investing resources to create a compact and connected development area with an emphasis on those activity centers that I mentioned earlier, expanding economic opportunity, supporting agriculture and forestry uses within the rural area while preserving the rural character and environmental resources within the county. And also, in terms of climate action, mitigating and preparing for climate change impacts. And last is to strengthen our social connections and community. So what is to come within phase four? Again, we're seeking input on this draft document that we published the other week. It's now available online. I'll describe where it's located on our website. We're going to have those work sessions with the Planning Commission and the board to review that draft document and receive their feedback. So that'll be with the Planning Commission next week, August 26th, and then with the Board of Supervisors on September 10th. And then once we refine that document, we're going to present that final document at two public hearings, the one with the Planning Commission on the 23rd of September, and then the hearing with the Board of Supervisors on October 15th. So that is our projected adoption date for AC44. So our website, I imagine that many of you in the audience are familiar with this website if you've been checking it throughout other phases. That's at engage.albemarle.org/AC44, and we have a new phase 4 page under that. So we have document files. There's a separate PDF document for each part of the plan, 1 through 4. And the website also includes a Q&A tool as well as a feedback tool. And we're keeping that feedback tool open through September 5th. And that's so we have time to assemble the feedback that we get and incorporate it into that final update of the plan document. So I'd like to mention that we have a lot of QR code flyers here. Those are out in the lobby. We also will have them set up at the various stations where you can review plan content, and I'll go over that in a minute. So at these breakout stations, we have several. So staff will be available to help guide you to the different stations. And I'll go into the navigation of that in just a moment. But there are posters with chapter information. We also have printed copies of the topic chapters that are at each of those stations. So staff will be there to answer questions and receive any feedback that you have, your first impressions of the plan. And then again, we have those QR codes. We have a QR code on each of the posters, so as you're walking around, you can scan it that way. And also those flyers that I mentioned that'll be at each station. Hoarding is encouraged, so please take some home and share them with other people. And then in terms of how we're breaking up these different groups, straight out in the lobby, those posters you saw as you're coming in, so that those give an overview of the plan. It talks about the implementation and big moves. We also have like a sample feedback tool that's got multiple choice options if you'd like to vote on your first impressions of the plan. And then big picture, what we're looking for is just general feedback, and it can be cursory at this level, but again, if you haven't reviewed the entire draft document or just the chapters you're most interested in, again, we encourage you to go to our website sometime after it's open house and encourage others to do so that we can get that detailed feedback from you. So the other rooms, 241, which if you go out and take a right, it's down that hallway, and we have signs directing you. But the first topic grouping is going to be development areas land use, along with economy and transportation. There's also a second station set up in that room, and those posters have parks and recreation, cultural resources, and housing topics. And then room 235, which is adjacent to the lobby on the right-hand side as you walk towards the doors. That one will have rural areas, land use, environmental stewardship, and community facilities. And then in Lane Auditorium, we'll have a couple of staff that will hang around here and help out with our virtual attendees and answer any questions they have. I think that's it. Yeah. So with that, if anybody has any sort of general questions they'd like to ask, go ahead and shoot. And if you don't, then we'll just split up and we'll go into those different topic groups so you'll have a chance to ask those more detailed questions about plan content. Yes, sir. Yeah, sure. So the question was this priority we have in the plan to protect and restore the natural environment and just various issues that we're grappling with throughout the county, things like invasive species, protection of water quality, which is degraded in some streams and watersheds. So that is most thoroughly addressed within the environmental stewardship chapter and the rural area land use chapter. I would encourage you to visit those stations, talk to the staff there. Those touch on obviously some ongoing efforts. We have a stream health initiative. DEQ is constantly sampling our watersheds to get a gauge of how healthy those streams are. And we're doing everything we can to make progress with improving water quality. Also, within the county's planning, we have separate watershed protection areas where we really place an emphasis on limiting growth. And we really want to restore those stream buffers and make sure that we're doing what we can to make progress in those areas. And a lot of those natural features and resources overlap with climate action effort. Okay. So if there's no other questions, you all, and take your time. If you need a few minutes, need a break or something, we'll be here until about 8 o'clock. So you have plenty of time to visit these various stations and ask questions of staff. Thank you.
Okay, so we are, we have just started this virtual session. So if you have any questions, I have Tanya here who can answer the questions for you. And all you need to do is raise your hand and I can unmute you. Okay. So we could also just walk through the posters if you want to do that. I can share my screen and you can talk through them. I don't see any hands raised right now. So what I'm going to do is basically walk you through the posters that we have. And then Tanya, you can talk through. Let's see. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
If we can do that.
Just make sure I know
And
which
if you
one.
have a question, just raise your, oh, wow, we have some questions. Okay. So if you look at I can read the question, but in the Q&A module, you can see one question is, in recent years, especially since COVID, I have observed a lot of homelessness in the Charlottesville area. I have especially seen some of this in the downtown area. Does the plan allow for addressing this issue and helping this population?
So this is a great question. I know it's a one that we talk about a lot. This question or this topic is really mostly addressed in our housing chapter because most of those folks are experiencing homelessness. And really that chapter addresses affordable housing and different housing options. So there are several actions about helping folks stay in the homes that they um, live in now, getting help with energy efficiency upgrades so they can stay in their home, reduce those bills, and be able to afford to stay. Also, there are recommendations about investing in affordable housing as a county, and also preserving the existing affordable housing that we do have in the county.
Okay. And then the next question is, let's see, I do not think we focus enough on business/industrial development in the county. We have some very large corporations here, and we should work with them to expand their business, which creates employment opportunities and growth. So maybe not a question, a statement, but Tanya, can you respond to that?
Sure. So this general topic is covered in our Thriving Economy chapter and is also linked to a plan that is going on right now called the Economic Development Strategic Plan. This has been to the board recently, and addresses this very topic of working with prospective employment opportunity or employers and investors to come to the county instead of going somewhere else.
Here's another question. I have also observed that there are a number of businesses in the downtown area that have closed. How can you work with these businesses and help them stay afloat and thrive?
That's a good question. So the comprehensive plan covers Albemarle County, which is outside of the downtown area. But as far as the comprehensive plan, working with businesses, that type of thing, again, would also be included or addressed in our Thriving Economy chapter, and making sure that we work with those businesses to provide the tools that we have available to stay afloat.
Okay, let's see. I see no other questions right now. So what I'm going to do is see if I can share the posters that everyone in the in-person audience is going around to tour. So let's see here. I'm going to make this bigger. So Tanya, if you want to take us through these posters, and I can kind of navigate as you speak.
Sure. So I don't know if we want to get too much into this one because Ben covered the topics of what the comprehensive plan is and the project phases. The part on here that we could talk about is how our recommendations developed. So we got feedback from various places. We started with, the recommendations in our previous plan, or our current plan, I should say, from 2015, looked at those, figured out which ones we've accomplished, which ones we may need to adjust. We collaborated with our interdisciplinary team of county staff and other external partner agencies. We also incorporated our best practices from around Virginia, and we got that feedback from the Community Planning Commission, Board of Supervisors, to revise those recommendations. And then we really tried to apply this guiding principle for equitable and resilient communities across the board to all the recommendations. So that's how those recommendations were developed. It was an iterative process. If you want to move on to the next one, we can.
Sure. I have a question that just came in, and the question is, can community gardens be added to the sections in the Parks and Rec amenities?
That's a good question. So our comprehensive plan is really a guiding document and is supposed to be as a global view. That kind of detail is something that might show up in one of our small area plans or master plans that we have. And once the comprehensive plan is adopted, we do intend to start working on more detailed plans or our small area plans. And that's really where we would want that community garden idea to show up in that detailed way.
Great. So here we are on the next poster and how the plan is organized.
Sure. Ben covered this a little bit too, but just to kind of reiterate, that first part is really our plan overview, which goes over our county history, provides some context, and then describes how the plan is organized. And our growth management policy covers how and where we grow, and also considers the infrastructure and services that may be needed to serve our current and future residents. The plan implementation is where we address these specific topics that you've been hearing about, such as cultural resources or land use or transportation, as well as the implementation chapter, which gets into, now that we've established our goals, objectives, and actions to achieve this vision, how will we go about implementing the plan and achieving those actions? And the last part, as Ben said, is really referencing detailed information about our community engagement process, as well as our community design standards and other documents that are important to reference in this plan.
So I'll just remind you that in the chat, I shared a link to this document, so you'll be able to kind of follow along too if we're scrolling in a way that you is not how you read. So, and let's see, let's
This is just additional detail.
okay, and then we have the plan overview, and then this is the beginning of our part 3, the chapter topics.
Can you zoom in on
Yeah.
one of them, on like the development area land
Mhm.
use? So just to go through in a little bit more detail about our chapter topics, and we'll start with the development areas land use. Our growth management policy really directs growth to our development areas, which you can imagine are the more urban like areas in the county. They're intended to be more dense development and intense business and employment opportunities that include housing and commercial uses, as well as jobs. This development will focus on improving the efficiency and quality of our infrastructure. This allows us to take advantage of the infrastructure that we already have, and also efficient provision of services. So this chapter will guide our activity centers as walkable and mixed use nodes with concentrated development. We have, I believe it is about 20 different activity centers around the development area, which are these even more focused areas where we expect dense development to happen, so we can accommodate the number of residents that they're projected over the next 20 years to come to Albemarle County. So our Thriving Economy chapter is more of the strategic plan that I mentioned before, the economic development strategic plan that I mentioned, is our short-term, more nimble document that looks at the detail of our economic development strategy over the next 5 years or so. This chapter of the comp plan is really looking at more of a long-term economic strategy, I guess, really trying to improve the quality of life in our community, prioritizing job opportunities, career advancement, supporting our local business, To achieve these priorities, the county will leverage its new strategic plan that I mentioned. So this also has about 7 different objectives with several actions underneath each one to give a little bit more detail on those actions. The last one on this poster is transportation. So as you can imagine, everybody loves to talk about transportation and think about transportation planning. It is a critical component in the planning process because we can encourage the dense development, we can encourage the job centers, but you have to be able to get there in an easy and clear way. So the goal that is presented in this transportation chapter is really reducing those vehicle miles traveled and providing options, multimodal options to our residents so that you have a various options of how to get to work, for instance, how you travel about the county. And we have several objectives specifically geared towards the rural area and development areas, because as you can imagine, we're a very large county and those two areas are treated a little bit differently as far as how we determine where and how our investments are placed.
Let's see, go to the rural area land use.
Sure. So getting into the rural area chapter, this chapter was an important one to recognize that our rural area has a very unique character, and it's the protection of that character is crucial, as well as protecting our drinking water and clean air, dark skies, all those characteristics that we enjoy about our rural area and makes it unique. So this also has 7 different objectives dealing with or addressing land use patterns, protecting our resources that we have, supporting our land conservation programs, also addressing non-residential land uses and existing development, just as a few examples. Our environmental stewardship chapter is also where you will find many of our climate action goals. This chapter covers our long-standing policies for protecting and restoring biodiversity, is really reflective of our stream health initiative, and is an important facet of our climate resilience and climate mitigation, with our goals including net zero greenhouse gas emissions and increased renewable energy source uses. So the last one on this poster covers community facilities. So this would include facilities like libraries, fire stations, police stations, even community centers, which actually I think is covered in Parks and Rec, sorry, but still this is really about how we, it's about our services really that we provide to the community and where we do that, how we do that, and how we invest in those facilities. We'll go to the last chapter, and the first one includes parks and recreation. So you can imagine we seem to be a very active community, and this is a very important topic and one that a lot of folks are interested in to improve quality of life and access to nature. This chapter identifies the parks that we currently have, as well as potential, looks to the future for potential parks, as well as encouraging that natural beauty and connecting to our environmental features that we all know and love, like our forested hillsides and streams. Our cultural resources chapter is one that establishes protections for our unique scenic and historic character. These resources really contribute to our community's quality of life and our sense of place and our uniqueness and as well as our local economy. Some aren't protected as well as other communities. And so this chapter really digs into how we might be able to um, protect those resources and even identify what those resources are. And the last one on this poster is about housing. We had a question earlier about housing. We're all interested in keeping our housing affordable as well as accessible throughout the community. We want to increase our support to cost burden households. These are households c- um, that spend more than half of their income on housing. And their transportation to and from work. This can often make it very difficult to purchase a home. So we've outlined a few priorities that include strategies to increase the supply and the range of different types of housing, especially in those activity centers that I mentioned, as well as also preserving the aging housing stock that we do have and supporting low-income homeowners to remain in their existing units. Several objectives here address that housing supply as well as preserving the existing housing stock, diversifying our housing types, and other options. Oh, and the last, I think this is the last poster. This is the big moves poster that we discussed or we presented to Planning Commission about a month and a half ago, I think, and board just over a month ago. These are, like Ben had mentioned, these are moves that we feel like are really strategic moves to move the goals of the comp plan as far as we can. And they cross different departments and entities. So this is really about us as a county working together. That first one is aligning regulations to support the implementation of the comprehensive plan. As Ben mentioned, this includes our zoning ordinance as well as subdivision ordinance. The last time those ordinances were, it's been a while since those have been updated, so we need those to reflect our evolving growth needs as well as the vision in the comprehensive plan. The second goal or point of this particular big move is about improving the clarity of our zoning ordinance, making it easier to read, making it clear what is needed from the ordinance, what we're looking for as a county, making it easier to use for those who are trying to work on their property. The second one is about increasing affordable housing and access options. We can update, part of this is updating our zoning rules to allow more housing types. Currently, it is somewhat difficult to build what we call missing middle housing, which generally is considered quadplexes, cottage homes, those types of housing that are in between a single family home that might be on an acre down to just something a little bit more dense than a duplex. The third one is about investing our resources in our activity centers. We're really looking to focus our investments in an area where it makes the most sense and we are using our land use efficiently, and make these areas places where folks do want to live, work, and visit. So looking at improving quality of life and reducing inefficient expansion by encouraging those diverse housing options and better access to jobs. The fourth one is directed in to cover our rural area. It's about supporting development of agriculture and forestry uses while preserving the rural character and conserving environmental sensitive resources. We're looking to preserve the food production that we know occurs in the rural area, as well as that character we all know and love, and while also keeping the environmental health in mind. We want to make sure we balance that development activity, minimal as it is, while we protect those sensitive ecosystems and maintain the area's identity. The fifth one is about driving innovation and expanding economic opportunity. Again, this relates back to our economic development strategic plan and the long-term strategies within that plan. So the comprehensive plan and that strategic plan will guide land use, infrastructure, and business development. These kinds of policies will promote mixed-use areas, accessible transportation, and a variety of housing, which really fosters that innovation and economic diversity. The sixth one relates to climate action, so mitigate and prepare for the impacts of climate change. We felt this was important so the county can proactively prepare for potential events, potential climate events, as well as reducing the effects of climate change in general. We can proactively strengthen our infrastructure, get our emergency systems ready to go, and have plans in place. Our natural habitats like forests and our wetlands also increase the resilience and longer term costs associated with climate change. So this, as you can imagine, relates to our environmental stewardship chapter and the objectives and actions within that chapter. This last one was one that we added as requested by our PC and our Board of Supervisors about strengthening our social connections and community. I think we can all understand and have felt it in some way or another, the social isolation that has tended to increase over the past few years. And this was important for PC and board to address so that we can include, encourage our community to be inclusive by intentionally designing spaces and systems that foster that connection, including investing in parks, our trails, cultural facilities, and providing multimodal transportation so a variety of residents can gather and share experiences in these spaces and feel that sense of belonging when they feel isolation.
So Tanya, we have a question about this, number 7. Can you please elaborate a bit more about what you're envisioning a system that fosters connection in the county?
Sure. So an example might be the community centers. We've called them resilience hubs. I guess community center could function as a resilience hub. So the resilience hub would function like in a time of emergency, a place where individuals could go that might have generators, so they'd have electricity, potentially showers, all these things that when we are isolated in our homes and we experience, for instance, an electrical outage or a power outage, we don't have access to. So that resilience hub could provide that opportunity for individuals to connect to each other even during a crisis. as well as our parks would be a major area where we would see social connection. As you can imagine, walking along a trail or, you know, uh, canoeing down the river, you run into other folks and, you know, end up striking up a conversation because you're doing something as that you both, you know, everybody else is enjoying. You're all doing something similar. So you have something already to talk about and engage with each other. So those are a couple of examples.
Ooh, that was I was sitting here looking at us and I'm like, oh, are we those ladies on NPR? And we can only wish. So thank you for hanging with us. Oh, wait, see, like we might have another question. Let's see. Okay, another question is, I am surprised not to see a word on education. I understand the division of accountabilities between school board and county. And the commenter says, let's be blunt, our education does not deliver what we need. So maybe Tanya, talk about the connection between the county and the schools, local government and schools, and how that might play out in land use planning.
Sure. So we are in constant contact with our school district about the needs of the school district. When we get development applications in, often one of the I'll say amenities or amenities that they will offer as part of the development is a future school site. And we work with our school district to make sure that a school would potentially be needed in that area. So we would make sure that our land use follows that need for a school and make sure that, you know, there are enough children in that area that would require an elementary school or whatever level is needed in that area.
All right. If you have a question and you don't have access to the Q&A, feel free to raise your hand and I can unmute you and you can speak into this big room with us here. We're the only two people here. Everyone else is out there in the hall and in the different rooms. Another question that just came in. Let's see. What can you do to prevent only a certain demographic to take advantage of the strength of the social connections and community you're establishing in the county? I'm trying to maybe parse this question as I'm reading it. How will you ensure folks that you're targeting are reached?
I think engaging a diverse cross-section of the community is going to be the best way for us to gauge what's actually needed. And probably our best tool to focus our energy and investment in providing those resources for social connection.
And I don't think that this is necessarily a part of the comprehensive plan, but as we look at really valuable community information that's provided to us from, say, Map to Health, the Orange Dot report, the Community Wellbeing report, which is, you know, leveraging community partnerships and what community partners and community members have to say and share about what they're experiencing in the community. I think those are really important components, and really working together with community organizations that have that experience and the trusted relationships to create partnerships so that our work can be more effective.
Well said.
Okay. I just want to say thank you to everyone who's still hanging out, because this is the first time we've tried to do this in this type of room. So we really appreciate the questions. And I know that this type of content is harder to take in the moment. So we encourage you to go to the website and check out the content that we're sharing. And then also we have those, Tanya, do you want to talk a little bit about how people can kind of stay tuned? There's the work sessions and then ultimately the 2 public hearings. Is that right?
There are 2 public hearings. So coming up most immediately, we'll have 2 work sessions, one for PC, which is You make sure I get the date right in my mind. I believe it's August 26th, which is a Tuesday.
Those dates are on the calendar, on the website I shared. Mhm.
Absolutely. And we will be heading to the Board of Supervisors on September 10th. So at both of those work sessions, we'll be hearing what those public bodies have to say about our draft plan. And I'll also say that we'll be sharing any feedback that we received between, between the documents release and that session. We'll try to summarize that the best we can and share that with both bodies. And then our public hearings are for PC, September 23rd, as well as for the Board of Supervisors, October 15th. So when we go to PC at the public hearing, staff will be seeking a recommendation from the commission to the board to adopt our new comprehensive plan. And we hope that the board agrees that the plan is ready to adopt. And so we'll be looking for adoption on October 15th.
I hope you're at home, that you're seeing the camera, that we're sharing, not just my little icon.
I think they
I hope
are.
that's working. Okay.
Hope so.
And so you may or may not know, but in the public hearing forums, there's time for public comment. So you can come sign up in person or online, where there's professional experts that are ready to manage the Zoom, where you'll get 3 minutes to say what you need to say. And that goes, of course, on the public record. You can also share your comments and suggestions to the Planning Commission, the Board of Supervisors directly, and through their email address. And that's planningcommission@albemarle.org and BOS@albemarle.org.
I should also mention that on our website, there is the feedback tool that you can provide specific feedback to us, and we'll share that along with Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors, as well as there's a tool that if you do have a question you think of, tomorrow afternoon or Monday morning or whatever, go ahead and submit that question via the website, and we will try to answer that question for you.
Okay. Again, thank you for hanging out with us here in Lane Auditorium. Oh, I see another question. Love it. Okay. This question is, I might have missed this, but have you mentioned something on the emergency services and infrastructure to help in many ways, especially in quick responses in rural Albemarle?
Yes, so that is addressed in our community facilities and infrastructure chapter. We don't address response time specifically in the comprehensive plan, as that is really part of our fire and rescue services, plans, and strategies. So it's covered generally, but not specific response times.
Thanks for that question. All right, like Tanya said, we do have that Q&A tool on the website, and we make really good efforts to get those questions answered that quickly. So please feel free to use that. And then certainly you have the project team email, which is AC44@albemarle.org, for any additional questions or comments about this project. And unless I see another question in the next couple of seconds, we're going to close this out and invite you to check out the website and all the amazing materials that are posted there. Oh, okay, let's see. Oh, Peggy, you're testing me out here. All right. Peggy, are you able to share your question?
I don't have a question, just say thank you. And I did want to say that there are in the rural communities, at least the Southern Albemarle communities, much to do to ask questions of your emergency service centers. They are prepared and they are working towards ensuring that even though the comprehensive plan is not working on response times, they are. So please check in with them.
Thank you, Peggy.
Thank you. And then we have a suggestion. Can you please provide virtual breakout rooms next time? It feels like we're missing out. I love that suggestion, and I think we will try every way to make this more engaging in the future. I can't say, I am also missing out, so I can't say for sure. But in the breakout rooms, I'll describe, they are the posters that we shared, so you have that content, and there's staff in those rooms, just like we have our expert Tanya here. And the little activity that they have is identical to the feedback form that's on the website. You can indicate how you feel in terms of your comfort level with the existing draft, and there's an open feedback form. So I know I have FOMO too, and I'm sorry about that. But yes, I take your feedback, and we would love to make it better.
Karina, remind me, did we put the posters online as well?
Yes.
On the website? We
They
did.
are. So
Okay.
the posters that we just shared virtually are also in the document section of the sidebar of the website. All right. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for coming and sticking around and asking great questions and sharing your feedback. And yeah, we will make improvements for the next time. And so stay tuned, and yeah, please share your feedback with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.